Welcome my friends, welcome back to Project TAS. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you've watched any of my previous videos, thank you for returning to my channel. Today we're doing another Blake 7 episode review from Season 2. As always, I will point out that this review will inevitably touch upon certain plot elements of this episode and may even reveal developments for the series of Blake 7 as a whole. So if you haven't seen this episode or anything else in terms of Blake 7, a huge spoiler alert is in order in case you wish to do a bit of Blake 7 catch-up prior to watching this review. You have been warned. Right, let's get to it, shall we? Having ranted on 3 times as long as I intended for Voice from the Past, I must now be succinct with this next one. Gambit is better. For me, it's the best one of the 3 episodes that concentrate on the search for Star 1. And it's still rubbish. An episode later than they should have done, the crew have finally decided that it's time to go looking for Dockerly, and have managed to find the very planet he's on at the first time of asking. Regrettably, the rest of the search for him is just as brief and uncomplicated, at least from the point of view of the main characters. We spend next to no time with the 3 who are looking for him. We actually spend more time with Avon and Villa, who are just trying to hoodwink a pile of money out of the casino, and this storyline is massively more interesting than any of the other plots going on. Ergo, a major problem with Gambit. Having stayed on the ship for 6 episodes in a row, Callie's feet finally touch soil in this one, or rather ground that isn't a deck of the Liberator, although she finds herself with hardly any lines and simply has a pretend catfight with Jenna so Blake can get some surgery tools from the rather too easy to access rear room that Dockerly was hiding in. So while on the surface it looks like our 2 heroines have finally got something more to do, I'm afraid the most enviable female role this week is still that of Servalan. Nicolette Rigg acts the part of Cheney perfectly well, but she's not a particularly memorable character. The croupier is a memorable character for all the wrong reasons, and that leaves the female side of the characters being led by the Supreme Commander herself, who actually has a lot more screen time and lines than any of the main characters, never mind the female ones. In fact, that's a theme of this episode as a whole. The supporting roles, guest parts and recurrers are all a lot more heavily involved in the story than the heroes we are supposed to be primarily following and rooting for. This is not necessarily a bad thing, although it is a strong indication that the actual search for Star 1 wasn't as big a deal to the writers of Blake 7 as the actual finding of it and teleporting down to it. Just as I alluded to during my condemning of Voice from the Past, the 3 episodes that concentrate on the search are pretty much just filler in themselves, and the fact that the search comes across as more of an afterthought on this occasion speaks volumes that the writers were running on empty during what was quite an important part of Season 2. It does very much appear as if random ideas, or ideas for programs other than Blake 7, that never quite made it to the final script, have all been chucked haphazardly into this one episode, without too much consideration or awareness that it was meant to be a Blake 7 episode we were seeing here, and this was very much going against the Blake 7 grain. So anyway, this episode is being held up by its guest stars, and unfortunately it sags on its legs. It's depending on Servalan and Travis taking centre stage and being just as interesting to watch as the main cast, which admittedly is an interesting approach, and in the case of Servalan, Jacqueline Pearce was never going to let the side down. Unfortunately, this is a perfect example of why Stephen Greif is a much better Travis than Brian Croucher. Now, I must point out that this wasn't entirely Brian Croucher's fault. Apparently he was never given the opportunity to properly develop his character. He worked with at least one director who, for whatever reason, didn't like him, and they weren't willing to explore his character with him. He was very nervous as a result when he started the role, and I don't think this improved much as time went on. So, yes, not entirely Brian Croucher's fault, but it was someone's fault. A collective fault, probably, and the result is all too evident on screen. Every one of the scenes he's in, the majority of which are more drama than action or theatric, are played as if he only has a quiet acting setting.
Have a drink, Charles. One of us has to see straight. Better be me.
Or a grumpy acting setting. There is no in-between. He can't hold a conversation with Servalan without an abundance of exaggeration on some of the lines and out-of-place snapping.
My arm. What have you done to my arm?
Why? What's the matter with it?
Damn you, Servalan!
It must have been damaged when you were brought here.
Shut up! So, you're working with Krantor.
He also can't seem to pull off an ordinary conversation with Chini without the need to whack his glass of blue lemonade on the bar.
Thanks for the drink.
And the rest of his conversations contain out-of-place outbursts or just generally come across as wooden and unclear, as if Croucher didn't know exactly how he was supposed to be coming across.
Doesn't need your help, Travis.
All right, Cheney, but I need his. My arm.
What happened?
The neural circuits have gone. He's the only man who can fix it for me. I'm crippled, helpless. You can't leave me like this. Oh, fuck. Cheney, do you think I'll give him away? I've saved his life twice. The least you can do is to tell me where he is.
You.
All I want is my arm fixed.
This is odd, given that this is his 6th outing in the role, already one more than Stephen Grief. But given certain comments made in the DVD commentary for Gambit, by Croucher himself no less, where he says that some of the actors were trying to out-camp each other, one wonders if he knew how to adjust his character to fit in. The simple truth is that such a theme can never suit a character like Travis, even with the touches of ham and camp that Stephen Grief gave in his own performance, and yet this is what the episode seems to be trying to achieve, a more funny and camp and surreal atmosphere, rather than the gritty and hardened drama we've become used to with Blake 7. This perhaps explains why Blake and his crew are somewhat faded out for this episode, as they would find it equally as difficult to fit in with a comedy episode, which not only goes against what they are trying to achieve in this episode and the Star 1 arc of Season 2 overall, but it goes against what Blake 7 is all about anyway. Instead, we're relying on characters like Crantor and Toys, who admittedly for me are extremely entertaining, particularly Aubrey Woods as Crantor, who for me steals the show away from all the rest, including, in my opinion, Jacqueline Pearce. John Leeson does perfectly well as Toys, although one can't take seriously a man with a golden, multi-tentacled crown the size of a flailing octopus on his head. He still holds his own though. The rest, however, are completely forgettable. Hence why the episode can't be sustained by its guest roles. Dennis Carey does the drunk Dockley okay, but he's no more interesting than any other drunk we've seen on the television. Shevedick should have given up smoking, I can barely understand him.
Where's Klein?
Who?
Oh, you know who I'm talking about. The surgeon who came in on the Bari.
Well, how should I know where he...
He drinks here, Sheeny. Now, where is he?
And Jarriere, while competently acted, is utterly superfluous other than being the irritating recipient of mountains of exposition. That's another issue with this episode. While exposition is sometimes necessary to a story, in the case of Gambit there seems to be too much talking about the plot than trying to show it. The exposition isn't even that well explained. Jarriere's not the only one who looks confused after Servalan's monologue. It's like there's too much plot to be conventionally fitted into the episode. Meanwhile, we're following Servalan and Crantor's respective searches for Dockley, both using Travis as a pawn for this endeavour. Again, we should be following Blake and the others. They're the ones we want to win at the end of the day. But no, we're stuck with the squabbling crew of camp. It's only at the end that Blake swoops in and gets the reveal that disappoints everyone. I find it interesting that Dockley warns us as much. He's actually staring at the camera as he says this. By this point, though, I really didn't care anymore. Also, by this point, Travis has had a grenade put in his arm by Servalan, designed to take out a lot of her enemies and problems with one bang. It's designed to go off when Travis's arm is removed, and yet it doesn't. It's not primed, says Blake. Why not? The pin was pulled, it all seemed okay. Yes, Jarriere comes across as a bit of a numpty. Quite how he became Servalan's new right-hand man is another curious point about this episode. But even if he botched the job of planting the grenade, he had Servalan watching the whole operation, and she wouldn't have let him nose it up. Essentially, the writers couldn't think of a way out other than the bomb didn't work. Come on. Which leaves us with Avon and Villa, the most uncanny and unworkable construction of the Likely Lads, and yet this is the best part of the episode, and that's not saying much. Interlaced with Avon gobbing his food towards the camera, a smug-looking Villa taking winnings over and over again, concluding with a not very tense chess game, as we never expected Aurak to lose. And if the writers couldn't be bothered to think of a better way out of the grenade in Travis's arm trap, why should this situation be any more difficult to resolve? Ultimately more watchable than several of the no-star episodes in Blake 7, but given what the story arc was about at this point, the characters' traits go against what the episode was trying to achieve, against what perhaps it should have been aiming to achieve. Everything feels out of place. Enjoyable? Perhaps. It depends what you want to get out of it. It's not getting any stars out of me. That concludes my review on Gambit. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, please share this video, please subscribe to my channel, and please check out my other Blake 7 episode reviews. And I will be seeing if I can get my laptop to shrink to approximately 1/8 of its current size, as that will apparently totally be a thing with technology of the future. Cheerio.